Welcome to the Curious Hearts Collective podcast, here to help you align to life in joyful, creative, and inspiring ways with your host, Vanessa Trufin.
Welcome to the Curious Hearts Collective podcast, where we explore possibilities in life to reconnect to your authentic self. My name is Vanessa, and I'm here to help you align to your life in joyful, inspirational, and creative ways. I am really excited to share with you that I have an incredible guest joining me today on the Curious Hearts Collective. Drum roll, please. We have Denis Trufin. Let me give you guys an actual introduction to who Denis is. This is going to be a really fun podcast episode because Denis and I have some pretty fun, intense history. We are actually still at this time married and will be at some point in the future not married. Unmarried for 3 days. Okay, now, inside joke, man. We have to watch those, Denis, because otherwise it's going to be an episode-long inside joke show. So Denis and I met in 2012. It was like, I don't know if you guys remember, back in 2012, there was this Mayan calendar ended and the world was going to end on December 21st, 2012. Well, Denis and I had our first date December 20th, 2012 at the Phoenix Zoo Lights. And that night I was like, holy cow, this man is incredible. I'm pretty sure I told him on our first date that we would be married, which I'm pretty sure I did. And I was right.
You did say that. Yeah.
I did say that. So we've been through a lot. We've lived an incredible life together. And before officially deciding to separate and end our marriage, we renegotiated our relationship. So we sat down through a couple of weeks, a couple of months actually, to sit down and talk with each other about what was important to us, what we wanted our relationship to look like, so that we could foster and really preserve the unique friendship and relationship that you and I have. Right, Denis? He is an incredible person. Denis is the most amazing man that I know. He's intelligent, he's kind, he's funny, he's charismatic. He has such a genuine care and interest for people. I've never met another man who wants to see other people thriving and happy and successful and being intelligent about their choices and mindful that knowing that the actions that they choose today will impact their future and the lives of others. He is a person that is hardworking, very caring, very kind, plant daddy, dog daddy, business daddy.
There's a lot of accolades. I didn't realize I had this many.
You have a lot. You have so many. If you ever need anybody to talk to you about dog training, he's your guy. If you want to learn how to start a YouTube channel, a successful YouTube channel, he's your guy. If you want to talk about finances, he's your guy. If you want to nerd out about space things, money things, public transportation,
learn how to play the piano.
No, that's funny though.
That was not me? Okay.
Nah, that's not you. I will give you $5 if you can go to the piano and find middle C right now, though.
I mean, it's a 1 out of 83 keys or something like that. That's a pretty good odds for me. Nothing to lose. I appreciate it. That's a lot of kind things to say about me. This is really interesting. This is obviously going to be our first episode that we're recording together as we're transitioning out of marriage into a different version of our relationship. And funny enough, not to like kind of showcase like how it's working right now, but usually you have kind of like an idea of what the episode's going to be about. And I think today we're just kind of going a little bit off the cuff, just kind of talking to each other and where our experience is and kind of where we're moving to, but also like I'm helping you on the back end with your episodes. So if you have been listening to the podcast up to this point, obviously pretty amazing, right? Make sure you're hitting 5 stars or following. And if this is your first episode, you got a lot to go back and watch and listen to, as well as a lot more to come forward, because Vanessa is definitely putting in her heart and soul into this. And I'm excited to see how this continues to expand.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, not just for the words that you've said, but truly, Denis is the mastermind behind this podcast actually happening. I had sat down and recorded, I think I had 9 or 10 episodes recorded before I even did anything about it. And Dennis is the one who's helping me navigate and manage and be very intentional and focused on getting this put together and completed and out into the public. So I'm so grateful, so grateful for you. I
Yeah.
always have been. He was like that when I had Avancy too. I couldn't have run that business without him. And I think that's just a really good example too of the dynamic you and I have, Dennis, is we complement each other really, really well, and we know when to kind of push back to excavate the greatness within each other, because I know that we've done that. Truly, we've done that for each other the whole time we've known each other.
Yeah, I was going to say multiple times throughout the entire journey that we've experienced together, and that we're going to continue, but just, from the original standpoint of the times that we would show up for each other and like hold each other high. And I think we brought in, and this is an important part for me, because when I reflect a lot, it's always like trying to remember, like trying to reflect on the times that like you showed up for me in ways that like I couldn't do it for myself, or just the skill sets that you have that you brought to the table that I always like to admire, because to me, I'm like, man, some of my experiences in life had been so amazing because of how you showed up for me, because I wouldn't have done that for myself. And whether that's internal work I get to keep on doing, or that's just the version of you that comes out based on being around me and vice versa, is huge. And I can think of, obviously we always go back to kind of like some of the core ones that you and I always talk about, which is getting our first dog, which I never wanted a dog, or traveling the world when I didn't really want to travel. And, just some of these other avenues that I think I would have never gone down had it not been for you and how you showed up for me, but also how you showed up for me, I think was a huge impact for me. And being able to kind of meet me where I was at, even if you didn't sometimes know it in the moment, but like when you reflect on it, you're like, oh yeah, I did do that. I am really cool. Like how to connect with me.
I'm grateful that you constantly remind me of that, because you're somebody that I admire and think is really cool. So your feedback always means a lot to me. Always means a lot to me, and I know vice versa is the same. As you were talking about, the experiences that we got to do together that maybe you wouldn't have done on your own. I want to start there. I think from the perspective I'm in now, we've been technically separated for almost 3 months at this point. And I think what worked for so much of our relationship between me and you, and going to places we hadn't considered going on our own, was curiosity and openness. I don't think you necessarily shot down a lot of my ideas and said, no, that'll never happen. Absolutely not. I know that you had some concerns and you had some thoughts that you needed answers for and clear plans for, to be able to be a yes. Yeah. But I think what really worked for both of us is that we are both really curious, and we are both open
for anyone
to at least considering and guessing through and playing through some of the ideas that we had.
Yeah, and I did want to kind of clarify too. So for anybody listening, obviously you probably at this point know Vanessa pretty well, just listening to her episodes and how she shows up in the world. So I'm a very analytical person, like sometimes to my own detriment, actually many times to my own detriment. And so when we'll go into more detail about like our travel and some of the other things that we did, and how there were times that even though sometimes I was really excited about wanting to do some of the things that you wanted to achieve, the logistical side of me comes out really hard, and sometimes would fight the opportunity for what could have been. Luckily, you would fight back on me, because, and you and I have talked about this, I think one of my favorite things about our relationship is that you do not hold back against me. And almost every other person I've ever interacted with does kind of scale back a little bit when I want to kind of show my intelligence in spaces where I'm like, well, according to XYZ, this shouldn't work this way and this should go this way. And most people might be like, wow, that's really smart, and I'm gonna step back a little bit because he clearly knows what he's talking about. And I do, but a lot of times that comes from such a logical standpoint that I miss out on the being portion of it, right? And so then you come in and you say, well, yeah, that's right, and like, here's what we could do if we also add this piece into the puzzle. And I don't get that from anybody else. And so the interactions that you and I have to be able to get there is really cool. So just as like a standpoint, as you're talking about all that, is that I come from a very logical mindset, and I've gotten much better over the years. And we'll talk about that in the future. But in this moment, if we're talking about early stages of our relationship, like, man, you couldn't convince me of anything. Not you personally, but like anybody couldn't convince me of anything outside of myself. But you somehow, once you showed up in my life, you were able to read me and then work with me, and then like I don't want to say convince me, but you helped me see new opportunities that the logical side of me couldn't, and nobody
Yeah.
else seemed to have been able to penetrate up until that point. And I don't know if that was like a scarcity mindset. I don't know if that was, I felt like I needed to figure out the world by myself. And up until that moment, until I met you, that was the truth.
I think, I mean, I do want to talk about that. And I think when you talked about, you don't know if it was maybe like a scarcity mindset, it kind of sounds, from my perspective right now, like control. And I don't mean like you wanted to be in control, you wanted to be the one to have control over me or over the situation, but kind of a little bit over the situation. You are a very analytical person, like incredibly an analyzing analyzer. And I know that when it's tough to make decisions like that and you have to contemplate this and that and all the different options, I think underneath that was control. Like maybe you didn't want to find yourself in a situation that was unknown, that you wouldn't know how to handle, how to navigate through it. And I think what worked for me and you is really looking at what's possible. It's like, I'm going to give you the example of getting a dog. I grew up with dogs. I have always had a dog. My family were big dog lovers. I love, 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 love them. Dennis did not. I don't think you grew up with any pets, really. Like
He
no
had rabbits for like two
consistent.
days,
Yeah,
but that
but
was
no consistent pet. And for those that don't know, Dennis's parents own a cleaning company in Arizona. And he would hear from his parents so often how difficult it was to clean pet hair. So they were going and cleaning people's houses and there was a lot of pet hair everywhere and it was such a challenge and to keep it clean. And Dennis had this mentality of pets are dirty, pets shed, pets are they make a clean home dirty and I don't want to have that.
and I also did have like a little bit of like some kind of need for things to be always clean, just from my, and that
Mhm.
actually doesn't stem from my parents being cleaning owners, cleaning business owners. At least maybe I don't think so, but like just for me in general, because I don't know if all my siblings are the same, but for me, I definitely like to clean space always. So the
Yeah.
idea of like when you would mention the idea of a dog, that always came back to my mind of like, oh my gosh, we've got to pick up all their fur. Like they're always, they're going to track in mud in the house, like all of these different things. And so yeah, it from a logical standpoint, if I like a clean house, dogs are the antithesis in my own head of like what that would equal out to on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And so hearing from Dennis, the hesitations he had around a pet, instead of hearing that and saying, well, he's closed off, we're never going to get a dog. How are we even compatible if I can't date a non-dog person? What? Let alone marry one? I'm sure there are people listening who are giggling to themselves right now thinking, yes, girl, same. But anyway, I took his hesitations and the fears and concerns that he had, and I was like, okay, well, what's the solution? And went to my good friend Google and started asking things, like, okay, dogs that don't shed. Cool. He also wanted a small dog, and me too. I like small dogs. So, okay, dogs that don't shed that are under 20 pounds. Okay, dogs that are hyperallergenic that don't shed that are under 20 pounds. And as I started listening to his concerns and listening to the hesitations he was experiencing, I was able to find a dog breed that checked off all the boxes, that checked off my boxes too. And finally, when I, came to him and I said, hey, here's this dog. They're really smart. They're easy to train. They're hypoallergenic. They have hair and not fur. We just get to brush them consistently. They're small. He was like, oh, okay. And his mindset changed from there. But I say this to say it can be so easy for somebody to be in relationship with another person and that's just the way they are, and think that's just the way they are, and accept that. And I'm not saying that I tried to change things about Dennis. It's just that I was curious. I was like, okay, what's really underneath this hesitation? Oh, he likes a clean space. He's heard from his parents that dogs are messy and they make the home really dirty. He doesn't like that. What can I do about that? Because I've grown up with pets that didn't shed and have, fur everywhere. And I think being able to be curious and to explore possibilities together, while it wasn't always an easy task, really led to big developments in our relationship and in our life and the cool things that we got to do together.
And your skill set and my skill set, I think too, right? Like you think about, first off, I do want to clarify, those were misconceptions in my own head of like that dogs are messy and will make a house dirty. Like that, those are just thoughts that I would have. Obviously they didn't serve right. And you know, I know better now that like, you know, with our dog too, like she's easy to take care of to a large capacity. Makes a mess with her toys for sure, and we step on her what we call dog Legos, really like hard toys that we step on. And for me, it's really just about I think what you ended up doing, and we talked about this a lot, which was you met me where I was, and then you developed some skills, I think, from all your experience in life to then come at me, and you came at me with such logic that like I couldn't in a way, like I couldn't defend it, right? Like I was just like, well, you did all the right things. Like I have no defense anymore to not be able to say yes at this point. And so you came at me at the way that I needed to be able to like make that work versus like, I say this, you know, in a kind way, like if you had just gone on and gotten a dog, I think that would have caused a lot of tension between us and like not understanding me and my struggles, because I didn't even understand my clear struggles. Like even now when I look back, I'm like, oh man, I know that I had struggled with cleanliness and needing to have it at such a high capacity that it was so debilitating at times for myself and causing, you know, friction and whatnot in the spaces that we were in. But I didn't even understand that. You didn't understand that at the moment. And so like the way you approached it, I think, was with compassion and saying, hey, like, can this potentially work out? Because it kind of knocks, and you didn't say like, hey, this hits all your check boxes, like you should say yes. You were just like, look at this. And then sure enough, shortly after you figured out it was a Havanese, by the way, shout out to the Havanese puppies out there. Favorite dog breed for us. Definitely really hit it. You hit it out of the park more so than I think you could have with any other breed. I think you just hit it right out there. So you started sending me photos of Havanese puppies, and then you had your colleagues send me photos of Havanese puppies. So I was inundated with really cute photos. And this was really before like Instagram was really hot with like videos or even photos.
Oh yeah, Instagram didn't have videos.
Like and Instagram didn't even have like dogs didn't have profiles yet, right? Like it wasn't a thing yet. So like we didn't see that on a regular basis from other people. So you just got them from the internet, and it was just so funny to getting from like your colleagues photos of dogs. And
I think you and I have always just also had this dynamic where we are really goofy with each other.
Yeah.
And we love inside jokes, and especially if we can surprise each other with funny things. So that particular day, I remember I emailed all of my coworkers and I said, please send this picture of this dog to this email address.
Yeah. And I would for sure say it worked.
I'm glad that you found it funny and that you didn't think it was bullying or that I was trying to pressure you or manipulate you into making a decision.
I mean, you were, but like in the right way, I think, because again, you didn't come at it from like you're wrong, I'm right. You were just like, hey, here were your struggles, and here's like an answer to that. And you were just inundating me in a way that like was playful and kind, and wasn't like being aggressive in any capacity. So it worked a lot for me, and so I hope anybody that's listening that maybe has a partner, whether it's a man or a woman, that is very analytical or very like hard-headed, I would say, you know, coming at it from meeting them where they're at, which I can only assume would be really, really tough, right? Because you're trying to get something across that seems to be the right path. But doing the kind of the breakdown of what's coming up for them, and maybe kind of taking a moment to kind of work through those things before, you know, coming at it with like, I wouldn't say like anger or disappointment, because like I think if you came at me again with like, hey, I need to get a dog, or like this isn't working, like an ultimatum of sorts, and I'd be like, at this moment, my answer would be no, right? Versus like you kind of like not wore me down, but you really showed me the possibilities of it, and then. I still remember the day we were at a mall and we were walking through, and there was a dog shop or whatever. And, you know, we were walking through, and I know some contention for people with like going into a dog store, but, you know, Havanese dogs tend to just come from like a handful of dog owners. And so we were there, and there was a Havanese, and we fell in love with her, and we ended up getting her as a surprise technically to you. But, we ended up getting her. She lived with us for 7.5 years before, unfortunately, passing away way too soon, even sooner than soon for most dogs. And the day we lost her, and I think this is just like a really cool like way to kind of like connect these all together. The day we lost her, I couldn't believe how emotional I had gotten from, and this is retrospect, not in the moment, but like reflecting on it, was how emotional I got for an animal that I didn't even want originally. Not her in particular, but just a dog in general. And then there
Yeah.
I was the day she had to, go, that I wept so hard that night on the
Yeah.
floor. And then for a couple of weeks, actually, felt very disassociated with a lot of things in the world because I was so connected to this animal that, again, I originally didn't want.
Crazy how that happens, but I'm glad that you were open. And I think had I gone behind your back and adopted a dog without your consent and your approval, I think that would have sent the message to you that your concerns and your feelings don't matter to me.
Yeah.
Because that would tell me like I don't hear you. Because if you have these valid concerns and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway, that would tell me, and I don't know if it would tell you, that your feelings don't matter, your concerns don't matter, you don't matter. What I want and what I want to do in this case matters. And for a healthy relationship, I just don't see how that could work.
Yeah,
You know,
and I
that
think
respect.
I think a lot about that on the like the flip side of things, right? Where since I'm more on like the financial side and business side of things, that I mean, seldom did I ever not come to you, and actually almost never come to you and talk about anything under $100 or over $100 that wasn't communicated, right? Like we would talk
Mhm.
about like, hey, I see this opportunity, and like, I, what do you think? And like I would ask you these questions too because I didn't want to just go and like make those things and be it on my own. Like I wanted your input on those things because it was truly for me like an important aspect for us to be on the same page about like how we wanted to plan for the future rather than just me saying, well, I know what's best. And I think I, I couldn't, unless we lived in a world where I can see both paths, I would almost venture to guess that I was more willing to show up in the relationship in like how we managed our future together by having those conversations because I felt that you understood me to some capacity with like all the other stuff versus like if you did, like my wonder is like in a world if you didn't talk to me about like wanting to get a dog and working through it and you just got one, had would I have like in retaliation said, well, then I'll just make my own decisions with these things, right? And then like we would kind of go in those two separate directions. So I wonder if there's like a world where that had happened and like that's the path we would take. And we'll never know, but I think truly because of how you showed up for me and something that massive in my experience, like I was much more of like I want to be in contribution to this rather than just doing things on my own. Because up until that, again, it always felt like it was just me trying to figure it out by myself.
Yeah, I think there is a world many years ago, pre-leadership, pre-emotional intelligence work on both of our ends, where we could have just retaliated, because I think that's the word you said, right?
Yeah.
Well, you did this, so I'm going to do that. And now I know that we both know better, that we wouldn't go about doing something like that to each other, especially from a place of hurt where you just want to hurt the other person, you know? And so we've talked a bit about how you're a very analytical person, and I know for myself, I get to ground myself when I talk to you in the past and even now, of like what concerns is he gonna have? What fears may he have? And then I will find answers to those things so that when I come to Dennis, when I come to you for something, an idea, a suggestion, whatever it is, I'm like, I've considered this. Here's this information. And then he still obviously has his own questions after that. But it's helpful to give somebody in your life that's very analytical room and space to figure out how they feel about things so that they can try to understand that, and then listening to their concerns and then together finding answers, because I know that without that we wouldn't have done half the things that we've done.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it out like I was this amazing saint who never lost my patience. Oh my God.
You never lost your patience.
I was never,
The
not
joke is
once.
that you would never be a doctor because you'd have no patience. So no, but I do believe that all of the work that has come together, and like then I also think about how you know yeah, you like you said, you'd come to me with an idea, and then like we would just go 100 miles an hour on like all the possibilities, but like more so like far into the future rather than like mechanics in the interim. So I know that also played well for you because you kind of liked when somebody like myself who like I'll end up doing the thing, right? Like we plan something, like I'm gonna do it. Like I'm a
Yeah.
doer, and I'll
We
get.
will follow through with it. If Dennis is on your team, there is 100% follow through.
Yeah, so like I always tell people around me, like, don't keep telling me what you want because it's gonna happen if you keep doing it, or
Yeah.
if you keep saying it around me. Like I'm gonna make it happen either because I keep like bringing it back to you, or like you and I are gonna take action on it. But and I've shared this with you too. Like I think I'm a creative person, but I think you're super creative. I think the way you see the world, the way you kind of want to dream big, like it excites me, and that's like one of the like we talked about like with renegotiating our relationship was making sure that we still had that connection because I love that, like the way you see things and possibilities. Like I click onto that, and then I want to go on that ride as well too, and so. When we talk about like the idea of like a dog, I think you saw some really big opportunities and like ways to kind of like build upon what we already had with something else in there. And I'm glad that I eventually, that one took a little while because that was earlier on in the journey, but I latched on, and I after Daisy passed, we ended up getting another Havanese because now I love
I
them.
love it. And from then on, I love that I called you, in the beginning when I gave you your really cool intro, I called you a dog daddy. And Daisy taught us a lot.
Yeah.
And she taught us of like things that we didn't do and things that we could do, ways that we could implement. And if you meet our dog Mirabel now, she's one of the best trained dogs I know. Like she's phenomenal, and that was 100% Dennis. I'm not even going to pretend like I had much to do in that because it was harder to train me than it was to train the dog.
Well, I told you I watched that training series on YouTube, and they're like, we can't call it human training because nobody would show up, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's true, because it was also me being trained, not just trying to train you as well. I was being trained as well because. Yeah. I think about how we showed up for Daisy and then how we show up for Mirabel. And, there was a little bit of that feeling of guilt because Mirabel has it better in some ways because we are now, making sure she's safer and making sure she's healthier and things that Daisy didn't get the opportunity for. But Daisy got a lot more freedom. And we learned a lot thanks to her as well too. So like instead of moping over me not being a good dog dad to Daisy at times, especially when I reflect, I'm just saying, wow, what a great opportunity to have learned how to sometimes maybe not show up in certain ways because it didn't support my dog, right? Like we talked about like dogs, our dogs have hair, and so you got to brush them often, and like I didn't do that with Daisy, and it showcased. And instead of whimpering about it or whimpering about it, like Mirabel gets regular brushings now because it is important for her hair to stay healthy and stuff like that. So I've just learned better, and I think I can only imagine like a human parent, right, with like their kids and like having the first kid and then the second kid and like the things that you learn and how it changes you and all these things, where instead of just moping over that I didn't show up a certain way, I just took all of that and say, hey, let's just continue to be better because now we know what we know. Because one of the things we've learned was that like all the things that showed up for our parents towards us, generally they did the best they could with what they knew, and I think the same was the case for us. Same thing for just our interactions as well too. Like we did the best we could with what we knew. Now we know more, and now we can do better.
Yeah, I love that you presence that because it can be said about anything, not just parenting. I've ran a business before, and now I know better. I consider things I didn't consider, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Just like you would. If you were to start a brand new YouTube channel for yourself today, you would do things completely differently than you did last time because you know better, because you've grown, and because you know how to think now too. You think differently. You're like, at least for myself, I know that there are people out there who are doing incredible things. I don't know what I don't know. So I want to be able to connect and search for those answers elsewhere. And we also get to hold grace for ourselves because I know it can be so easy to, like you said, have guilt and beat ourselves up for not knowing better, for not doing better in the past, when in reality, we were doing the best that we could with what we knew at the moment. So having grace for that version of yourself and trust in the version of yourself now, knowing, hey, you know what, I'm going to give it my best and do my best. And I acknowledge that I'm going to be making mistakes along the way as well, but they're not going to be super detrimental. It's going to be okay.
Like yeah, and I think about like how I'm thankful for having made those mistakes with Daisy, because I wouldn't be where I'm at now with Mirabel, or even our relationship. Like I think about how, I showed up at the beginning of our relationship and how I show up now, and what I'm, if I were ever interact with more people in the future, like how I'm going to show up for them, or talk to them about things because of how all the things I've learned, rather than saying, oh, I'm a terrible person for having done this or that, versus saying those were just getting to be learning lessons. And yes, sometimes it could be obvious to somebody else, but maybe to you it wasn't. And I say that with grace, because I know for me, there's times where I might have judged people and said, like, how do you not realize that? But they had a different life growing up, and they've experienced so many different things than I did. So I'm giving grace to somebody else to say, like, just because it seemed obvious to me might not be obvious to them, and that's okay. I just hope that they get to learn from that and, get to move forward with it just as much as I know I would want that grace as well, because maybe it wasn't obvious to me.
You are a perfect example, Dennis, of what a wonderful difference it makes in the world when people are open and share their light and share their gifts. You are such a beautiful example of why it matters for us to just be authentic and show up like as we are. Dennis, you have, for anyone listening, he has actually, how many YouTube channels do you have now?
4.
So
I had to think about it. Yeah.
I know. I had to think about it too. I would have guessed 4, so I'm glad that I wasn't too far off, or far off at all, really. He has 4 YouTube channels, and in these channels, he's giving so much information. That's basically what it is. You're just showing people, here's the thing, here's how you can do it, here's the results you can get, and walks people through them. And I love telling the story, and I know that you love hearing it too, because it was amazing. I got a call from my mom's friend one day, and she never calls me, so I'm like, oh my God, this is odd. So I pick up the phone, and she's like, Vanessa, I watched your husband's YouTube video about, you're gonna have to explain it. But she's basically like watched Dennis's tutorial on how to do this one thing, and it changed everything. Cue Dennis to explain the video, because I'm gonna butcher it.
It was a basics video, right? And to me, it's obvious, but again, that's everybody else.
To you, it's obvious, but to me and to her, it wasn't.
And I do want to preface this: if anyone's listening that is into investing or finances, this is not everybody's cup of tea. But my thing was, what does it look like to put an extra $100 towards your mortgage every single month towards the principal, and how big of an impact can that make? And it doesn't work for everybody because they don't prefer it. But for me, I think to help people save money and even, end up paying their house way faster, it makes a huge impact. So if you started a loan for 30 years, put $100 in, obviously there's a lot of like factors, and I don't want to say a bunch of numbers because you'll get distracted and lose track. And I know some people will too, but essentially is with some basic numbers where they put in $100 a month towards their mortgage. They'll cut their mortgage down by like 7-8 years or something like that and save like 30 grand. And to me, the biggest thing was, one, you're kind of like forcing yourself to save money, right, by putting it down on your mortgage early, and cutting your mortgage by 7 years means 7 less years of having to pay any kind of rent or mortgage or living expense that's that large, especially if you're getting older and like all of a sudden you making less money or on Social Security. It was a big deal for me. So to me, I was like, most people don't realize this just based off the sheer numbers, and how a very little amount of money can make a huge impact for the rest of their lives.
So he created a video teaching them that. She did that. She implemented the paying $100 extra, and then I think after some time saw drastic changes in this, how much she was going to be paying off in her loan, and
that was a couple of years ago at this point. So if she's still doing it, she's already paid off because of her interest rate at the time. This was years and years ago, but interest rates at the time for her, I think, were pretty high, or like higher than some of the averages. But if she continued, she's definitely saved a lot of interest, and will probably pay her loan off way sooner. And that's $1,500, $2,000 for some people that now they get to keep in their pocket and have more cash flow for themselves.
Yeah, which is amazing. And the point I'm trying to make here is you impacted her life
Yeah.
in a big way and the life of her kids. And who knows where that stops, you know? But you had the audacity to show up, the courage to do what you do. And with the Curious Hearts Collective and, you know, getting to have these conversations with just amazing people, it's to showcase the fact that you matter. The way that you say things only you can say, your insight, your wisdom, the way that you just who you are makes such a difference. That you being you, Dennis, and sharing your knowledge and your insight on the financial world, excuse me, made one big massive difference. And that's just one example of proof that we have. Like you have how many views on your, I don't even know what kind of question I'm asking here, but you just this year got, you know, the plaque for having over 100,000 subscribers on
Yeah.
your True Financials, your main YouTube channel. So we know that you have big reach, that a lot of people are taking in and absorbing your content, and it's amazing content. Like what you're doing is amazing. And anyone that's listening that has an idea of a goal, a vision in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, this is, I hope, encouraging you to take action on it, to find community, to give us a call if you need it, to help, you know, talk through your ideas and just ground yourself in the fact that if it's a pure, beautiful vision from your heart and your soul, like it can impact so many people. And I'm glad, Dennis, that you did what you did, even though it took a lot of work to do it and has since taken a lot of work on your part to build what you've built. Like you're doing
Yeah.
amazing things for amazing people, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Although I'm also going to say that everything you were saying is talking about yourself too.
What part?
All of it. Outside of it being financially related, but like just all of your life experience to show up and help other people, and this podcast and people working with you directly, which in case you didn't know, check out the resources in the show notes down below. To either work with you directly or to stay connected with you, because one thing I know of you, and I think the reason for me that like I just become at awe with you every time I talk with you is that like when you show up in spaces, like people just gravitate towards you. And uh, I think you support people in ways beyond even like numbers can showcase. And I think the people listening to the podcast, the people that are going to be listening to the podcast over time as you continue to do it, are going to be impacted so greatly around you, because you bring really good energy and a good vibe towards the teachings that you want to showcase to people. So everything you said, point flip right back to you.
Got it. Thank you. Um, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And I know this is normal for me and you, but I do want to point out like this is a conversation that's being had with two people that are about to go through a divorce together. And the fact that we can speak so kindly and nicely and respectfully to one another, living, you know, in different states now, in different homes, being apart for the first time in 3 months. Well, for 3 months, just goes to show that I don't even know what it goes to show. I think I just like lost. I'm at a loss for words, but
I think what you're trying to get at is that because we communicate, because we are open and honest and being vulnerable with each other, like there have been moments where it was a little tough for both of us. There's been moments where we were like pretty much both crying on the camera when we talk to each other. But I think about like right before we started recording this episode, which I know we're about to wrap up, but right before we started, we actually had a few moments of like a conversation, and it got a little bit like emotional. And then because we did that, it gave us more comfortability, at least from my perspective, to then kind of get back to where we shine our brightest with each other, knowing that, yeah, things are still difficult in certain avenues, but also like things are still really beautiful in the way we communicate. And I hope that, you know, we'll share the journey of all of that in the future, so that way other people that might be experiencing that and want to hold on to some sort of relationship with their previous partners can maybe learn some things about that as well too, so they can keep those relationships healthy.
Yeah, I love that. And I would like to, in the next episode, kind of talk about how we talked about today how you're a very analytical person and who I really got to be and how I got to think and navigate through being able to connect with you and to, hear your concerns so that we can move forward and achieve our goals and projects together. Next time, I'd kind of like to know what your experience is like, what you do to be able to connect with me so that we can get you look really excited about that.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that
episodes.
earlier, and I was like, no.
I'll just make sure you're following the show. I'm the promoter here, right? Make sure you're following the show. Make sure you're subscribed, whichever way, and you'll get to hear those episodes as well too. Because for sure, this is not the only episode. We'll be doing a lot more of these as well.
No way. I'm really excited to getting to connect with you again, Dennis, and on future episodes, getting to talk about the things that you've been through, the wisdom and insight you have to share, and getting to interview each other, because I know that you and I bring out such incredible things in one another. So I'm really looking forward to having this space where we can play and create and inspire others so that they can get curious about their life, their relationships, their goals, their visions. Any last words of wisdom or insight that you'd like to share before we officially close up this episode?
I'm just excited about your podcast. I mean, this episode's being recorded as the series launched. So this episode will be coming out months later because of how much you've already put together. So I'm excited to just kind of see this journey and the impact you're going to have with people. And again, check out the show notes for anybody that wants to stay connected with you even more, because I think how you're showing up and connecting with people is incredible, and I'm really excited.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you all for listening as well. Go forth, stay curious. Can't wait to hear how you are living your life in alignment, honoring your authenticity. Don't forget to just be who you are. Let your unique love and light shine through. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Curious Hearts Collective podcast with your host and executive producer, Vanessa Trufin. This podcast has been produced by Denis Trufin. And remember, links to resources will always be in the show notes down below for you, so make sure you check those out. And please follow, rate, and review this podcast wherever you are listening, as it does really help out this show.